Yanchi Jimbo Zorda Ningmi Zhang Zongder Molam Jimbo Ngabjata, Bakar Targam Zanto Shirmato, Tomba Tuji Chanla, Kip Shamsar, Mission Road Sering Shangams, Jao Tuji Shanlami Larma. Jimmy Bunzo Jala Soran, the Gorgia Tobam Por Shinjir Lord.
Now let us continue our study. We are studying the Bodhicharyavatara, composed by the great master Shantideva. Now we are focusing on the first 3 chapters that explain how to give rise to bodhicitta when it has not yet arisen. We are now learning the first one, chapter on the benefits of bodhicitta. Among the benefits of bodhicitta, yesterday we introduced both the common and the special qualities. According to the common qualities, relying on bodhicitta can purify negative karma. By relying on bodhicitta, we can accomplish all benefit for ourselves and others. With bodhicitta, we can fulfill the wishes of all sentient beings. We also learned that when we attain bodhicitta, our very name and the meaning of this human life are completely transformed. Today we will study analogies that extol the qualities of bodhicitta. There are 6 different analogies used to illustrate the qualities of bodhicitta. The first analogy uses the alchemical elixir that transforms base metal into gold. This shows how our impure body can be transformed into a most precious body. The second analogy uses the wish-fulfilling jewel to illustrate how precious bodhicitta is. The third analogy uses the wish-fulfilling tree to explain bodhicitta. By relying on bodhicitta, our virtuous roots continuously increase, becoming inexhaustible. This is what it explains. The fourth analogy is like being protected by a guardian and escaping from danger. By relying on bodhicitta, we can subdue all negative karma. It can also be said to subdue all fixed karma. This is what it explains here. The fifth analogy uses the analogy of the fire at the end of an eon to show how the root of all evil is destroyed. The sixth analogy refers to teachings of bodhicitta found in other sutras as well. These are the main points covered in the 6 analogies. Today, we will begin with the first analogy. First, using the analogy of the alchemical elixir to illustrate how the inferior is transformed into the supreme. Just like the greatest kind of alchemy, it takes this unclean body and transforms it into a priceless jewel, a Buddha's body, so firmly grasp a hold of bodhicitta. Here, an analogy is used. In ancient India, in their daily life, there was something called an alchemical elixir. This alchemical elixir is a kind of elixir that could turn metal into gold. Even a tiny bit of the alchemical elixir, when it came into contact with a large piece of iron or metal, can turn this large piece of metal into gold. For example, in our daily life, by mixing different medical materials or with certain chemical reactions, similar things can happen. For instance, if you add a little yogurt to milk, all the milk will turn into yogurt. In our world today, there are many products are made in this way. Through certain reactions, things can quickly change into something else. Such cases are quite common. This alchemical elixir existed in ancient India and during the earliest eons. But now, because sentient beings' merit is becoming increasingly scarce, such things are not commonly seen in daily life. However, in the past, the alchemy did exist. Here we use this alchemical elixir as an analogy. Originally, it was just an ordinary, very common piece of metal, but it could immediately transform into a priceless treasure or very valuable gold. In the same way, our present impure body is very unclean, but it can also be transformed. As everyone knows, from inside to outside, our body is unclean. For example, blood, flesh, bones, or skin, and so on. If we analyze these, we find that our body is composed of 36 kinds of impure substances. It comes from the impure seeds of our parents, and it consists of mucus and tears and many other filthy things inside. All of these together make up our present body, whether people think it is beautiful or ugly. Regardless of how we think it, its true nature is just like this. Regarding the impurity of the body, we will also explain this in chapter 8. In general, the bodies of us sentient beings are extremely impure, but by relying on bodhicitta, just like ordinary iron can be transformed into gold. In the same way, through bodhicitta, our impure flesh and body can immediately become extremely pure, no different from the body of the Buddha. What does this mean? before bodhicitta arises, our ordinary flesh and bones actually have no real value. Their substance is no different from that of a yak or any other animal. From either a temporary or ultimate perspective, they truly have no value. But when bodhicitta arises in our mind stream, from that moment on, this body of ours completely becomes, as described in the Diamond Sutra, a stupa worthy of offerings from all beings. It is no different from the body of the Buddha, worthy of veneration by all beings. Why, at what point, from the moment we begin to study the Dharma, can we say that we have entered the Mahayana path? According to the great master Longchenpa, in finding rest in the nature of the mind, it is from the lesser path of accumulation. So when genuine, uncontrived bodhicitta arises in our mind stream, it means we have truly entered the Mahayana path. Just as we discussed yesterday, our wisdom may not yet surpass that of the Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, but our spiritual lineage, starting from the lesser path of accumulation, has already surpassed that of ordinary beings and those on the lesser vehicle. In this way, we should understand that our body is truly no different from the body of the Buddha, adorned with the major and minor marks. Some commentaries also explain it in this way, or we can say that among all living beings, our human body has become something extremely precious and rare, so everyone should reflect in this way. If we do not truly have an altruistic mind in our own mind stream, then no matter how much others praise us outwardly or how highly we think of ourselves, in reality, there is nothing truly remarkable about it. But if genuine bodhicitta arises in our mind stream, then whatever our external actions may be, it is still meaningful. Even if someone is dressed in rags or appears unattractive, in fact, such a person is truly a worthy object of offerings. All beings, including humans, non-humans, and gods, should regard such a person as a worthy object of offerings and respect. So, from appearances alone, we cannot recognize who is a true Mahayana practitioner. A true Mahayana practitioner is someone whose mind stream is truly altruistic. Only then can one be called a genuine Mahayana practitioner. Wearing monastic robes does not necessarily make one a Mahayana practitioner. Teaching the Dharma to others does not necessarily make one a Mahayana practitioner. Frequently, building temples, stupas, or Buddha statues does not necessarily mean one is a true Mahayana practitioner. Only the practitioner themselves knows whether they have truly generated the aspiration in their heart. If one has made the aspiration and never declined, then this is a true Mahayana practitioner. No matter how lowly their appearance may seem, even if they appear as a butcher, prostitute, or beggar, the lowest and most inferior in worldly terms, in fact, through their conduct or the power of their mind, they can benefit countless sentient beings. So in this world, no one really knows where the bodhisattvas are. Just as it is said in the aspiration prayer for Sukhavati, sometimes those whom thousands of people deeply venerate, such as some renowned masters, whether they are truly bodhisattvas, it is hard to say. For example, some famous monks in Chinese Han Buddhism, or some renowned tulkus in Tibetan Buddhism, are they bodhisattvas? It is not always easy to say. Perhaps in their mind they truly have genuine bodhicitta. If so, then they are certainly worthy of our homage. If they do not have bodhicitta in their mind, if there is not even a trace of true altruism, then perhaps, on the other hand, when we see a beggar, if that beggar has altruistic bodhicitta in his mind, then that beggar would be worthy of our homage. Of course, this may go against some of our current customs, but in fact, this is how it truly is. Anyone who has bodhicitta deserves our prostration. So whether we are monastics or lay people, we should devote all our energy to cultivating bodhicitta. This is extremely important. Nowadays, there are people who engage in charitable activities, but I often feel that this kind of altruism is different from bodhicitta. Without doubt, these activities are very touching, and their deeds are truly inspiring. We can see that they also have a strong altruistic mind. People also express their admiration in various ways. But in fact, genuine bodhicitta has an even broader scope and deeper meaning. I think that many of the role models in the world today, or those who are well known for their altruistic deeds, may not possess true bodhicitta in the context of Buddhism. Why is this? Because the scope of bodhicitta is extremely vast, and the scope of altruistic mind is rather limited. For example, for each sentient being, we have love and kindness for our relatives, children, and parents. This kind of love and affection is not called bodhicitta, nor is it true altruism. We have discussed this before. Even very fierce wild animals like tigers and wolves, they also have compassionate love for their offspring in their mind streams. This kind of love is not true bodhicitta. There was a university in America that specialized in psychology. Once, a very famous professor there conducted some psychological experiments. The purpose of his experiment may not be the same as in our Buddhism. But I feel this story encourages us to reflect on the range of our emotional attachments. It helps us observe how our mind developed different levels of attachment to different people. How did he do it? One day, as the class was about to end, that university professor told all his students, "Today I am going to conduct a psychological experiment, a kind of game. Which of you would like to come up and help me with this?" A woman volunteered and came up to the stage. He asked her to write on the blackboard the names of the 20 people she loved most. She wrote down her family and relatives, and when that was not enough, she added her neighbors and all the friends she knew. So she wrote down all her neighbors and friends as well. After she finished, the professor requested her, "Now erase the name of one person you do not like as much." She erased the name of a neighbor. Then he asked her to erase another, and so on. Eventually, only 4 names were left. The 4 were her parents, her husband, and her child. He then told her to erase 2 more names. She was reluctant, but after thinking for a while, she erased both her parents' names after some hesitation. Then he asked her to erase 1 more. She was again very reluctant, but finally erased her child's name. The professor asked her, "Why did you do that?" He said, "Your parents raised you, so why erase their names? And your child is your own flesh and blood, so why erase that name?" She replied, "My parents will pass away before me. My child will eventually be left after me. My husband will spend his whole life with me, so I am more attached to him." Then the professor said, "This is how the scope of I and mine works. In fact, the scope of mine is very small. If the scope of your mine is very narrow, you have an attachment of mine toward your husband. Now he is yours, but there is attachment to mine. If there is attachment to mine, then you want to control everything he does, as you think of him as yours. Very likely he will have no freedom. Feeling as if imprisoned in that case, he may leave you early." He concluded, "If you are so attached, he may even leave you sooner." Of course, this is just a worldly experiment. But I feel that for many of us who aspire to the Mahayana path, although we often speak about bodhicitta, in reality, the scope of our bodhicitta is often limited to our own friends and family. If we see our friends or relatives in need, we are willing to help them. But when it comes to other beings, we may not be as willing to help. In the past, when Khenpo Sodargye of Sertar was teaching the ornament of clear realization, he spoke about the wisdom and skillful means of bodhisattvas. He publicly named Khenpo Kiwang from Nubzur Monastery. Both of them have now passed away. He said that a few days ago, Khenpo Kiwang went to the county seat because his relative had been detained by the police, and he went there several times. In class, he said that Khenpo Kiwang should not have gone. To act in such a self-centered way shows that his bodhicitta was not yet fully developed. Why did he only care about his own relatives? Why did he not visit when others were detained? He called out Khenpo Kiwang by name in class and was very direct. Of course, Khenpo Kiwang possessed excellent wisdom. Actually, they were both extraordinary practitioners. Khenpo Chokyap also often praised how well Khenpo Kiwang studied. But if Khenpo Kiwang went there for personal affairs, it showed his bodhicitta was not yet complete. On the surface, it seemed that Khenpo Chokyap was criticizing others, but actually his words also serve as guidance for us followers, reminding us to reflect on our own bodhicitta. We may find that we lack even the altruism of some worldly people, let alone genuine Mahayana bodhicitta. Not long ago, there was a singer in Shenzhen named Kong Fei who was not particularly famous. For more than 10 years, he donated all his money to orphans, people with disabilities, and who had no chance to go to school. He supported about 183 people. The money he donated was more than 3 million yuan. Later, he was left with a debt of over 170,000 yuan. When he was diagnosed with stomach cancer, he refused to seek treatment. He thought, "My health is not important. It is not worth spending money on myself. There are still so many people in the world who need this money." After he passed away, many orphans and people brought flowers to his funeral, and everyone was in tears. Such deeds are truly moving. Do we, as practitioners, have such an altruistic mind? Can many of us who claim to be practitioners actually do this? We often say we are Mahayana practitioners, but when it comes to helping others, what do we actually do? What is the scope of our altruism? How do we apply altruism in our daily lives? We should reflect on this. When we cultivate bodhicitta, it is very important to extend its scope. In finding rest in the nature of the mind, it is taught that we should start with our own mother, then those closest to us, and gradually expand the scope. Why is it taught this way? Because as ordinary beings, the scope of our attachment to I and mine is quite limited. Now, when we cultivate bodhicitta, we should see all sentient beings in the world as our own parents. There is no difference between them and our present parents. If our mind can expand to such a scope, then we truly have hope of developing bodhicitta. But right now, for many of us, including many Dharma friends, in the process of engaging in activities, even in small matters, our grasping at I and mine can be quite strong. There is a saying, "You do not know a warrior's courage until he is on the battlefield." You do not know a wise person's mind until he faces real challenges. This saying is indeed true. When we are just sitting in our own rooms, no one really knows whose mind is truly vast. But when we encounter situations and have to act, I myself often feel quite disappointed in myself. Sometimes I become impatient. Sometimes my grasping at I and mine seems quite pronounced. My genuine care for beings can feel quite limited. In this regard, I hope we can make aspirations together. Let genuine bodhicitta truly merge with our minds, not merely remain as a theory. Once we understand its meaning, we should apply it in our actions. How can we apply it in our actual conduct? This is extremely important. Now, as we have discussed, with bodhicitta, there is no real difference between this impure body and the body of a Buddha. So for us who study and practice Mahayana Dharma at all times, we should study and cultivate bodhicitta steadfastly, earnestly, and consistently. Bodhicitta is so precious, therefore we must cultivate it. Just like using the supreme alchemical elixir, our impure body, by receiving bodhicitta, can be transformed into the priceless body of a Buddha. In the past, when I did not have bodhicitta, I was just an ordinary person. Now that I have bodhicitta, I feel that I truly have some hope for liberation. Even if I do not achieve other meditative states, miraculous powers, or various qualities, it is fine. As long as we have bodhicitta, whatever we do will bring benefit. Therefore, we must persistently and firmly maintain this bodhicitta, which possesses such transformative power. The Avatamsaka Sutra says, just as 1 ounce of the elixir can transform 1,000 ounces of iron into gold, this is used as a metaphor. In the same way, the roots of virtue of bodhicitta, embraced by the wisdom of omniscience dedicated universally to all, bodhicitta, like the philosopher's stone, when embraced by all-knowing wisdom that benefits all beings, it can eliminate all the iron-like karmic and afflictive obscurations. It can eliminate all the iron-like karma and afflictions. The original metallic substance, the original impure matter and elements are all completely purified. All phenomena become the wondrous form of omniscient wisdom. But the iron-like karma and afflictions cannot destroy the gold of bodhicitta that aspires for omniscient wisdom. On the contrary, can this iron destroy the alchemical elixir? It is absolutely impossible. In the same way, no other karma or affliction can destroy bodhicitta once it has truly arisen in our mind stream. From then on, no matter what kind of desire, anger, jealousy, or pride arises, can these afflictions destroy the bodhicitta in our mind stream? They absolutely cannot. So this is the first point. Just as we discussed yesterday in this text, even ordinary people or those with heavy karma can give rise to conventional bodhicitta. However, such a person needs to have a broad and open mind. Why is this? If one's mind is not open, they may even lack confidence in themselves. They might feel, I can't even help myself. They may think, it doesn't matter if I die, and feel troubled every day. For them, it can be difficult to give rise to bodhicitta, but if you truly wish to benefit beings and hold this intention in your heart, then after making this vow, you never develop the thought, I will never benefit sentient beings again. Then, as long as this thought does not arise, you still have bodhicitta in your mind stream. I've mentioned that upholding this bodhicitta does not mean that every single moment you must consciously think about it. It doesn't mean that you're always mindful of this intention, whether you are walking or using the restroom. You do not need to be reciting or thinking about it constantly, because once you have received any vow, as long as you have not broken it, it remains in your mind stream. This is the nature of how vows abide in the mind stream. Some people think, I made the aspiration, but it was so long ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. Now I'm not sure if it is still there. Many of us, before learning the Dharma, may not yet understand even the basic principles of Buddhism. If you do not understand these principles, of course there will be all kinds of doubts in your mind. But as your knowledge of Buddhism increases, the doubts, ignorance, and confusion in your mind will gradually be purified and eliminated. This is something that will happen gradually. Now let us discuss the second point. Second, using the analogy of the wish-fulfilling jewel to illustrate its rarity and preciousness. In the verse here, the words wish-fulfilling jewel are not explicit, but the verse does mention something extremely precious. In many commentaries, both Indian and Tibetan, the wish-fulfilling jewel is used as a metaphor. In the verse, it says, examined well by the sole leader of beings with his immeasurable mind, it has great value. So you who wish to leave the places of beings, firmly grasp hold of precious bodhicitta. So, what does this mean literally? The leader of beings, Buddha Shakyamuni, and all the Buddhas, examined with their wisdom. They completely perceive that bodhicitta is as precious as a wish-fulfilling jewel in this world. So, anyone who wishes to transcend the 3 realms of samsara must do everything possible to uphold and practice bodhicitta. That is the meaning here. Why are Buddhas called the leader of beings here? Here the term leader can be understood through the analogy of the merchant captain. For example, in ancient India, there were many merchant captains. Merchant captains would often go to the ocean to seek treasures. When seeking various treasures in the ocean, some merchant captains are quite wise. They could analyze through their wisdom, which were genuine and which were counterfeit. After analyzing with their wisdom, they would obtain the purest wish-fulfilling jewel. Once they obtained the wish-fulfilling jewel, all illnesses, disasters, difficulties, and obstacles of beings would completely vanish. Through it, they would gain fame, wealth, position, and so forth. Whatever siddhis they desired would all be attained. All these temporary siddhis were obtained through the wish-fulfilling jewel. This is what the great merchant captain obtained with his wisdom. So, we explain this verse through the analogy of retrieving treasures. In the same way, the Buddha is the guide of the 3 realms. He spent a long time cultivating bodhicitta and accumulating merit. Eventually he attained perfect wisdom. His non-dual wisdom is free from obstacles. He never speaks falsehood. He has realized the true nature of all phenomena. This is the one and only Buddha in the world. With vast and inconceivable wisdom, he examined everything thoroughly. He carefully observed all phenomena. In the end, he discovered the most precious one among all. Sentient beings have many kinds of suffering and difficulties. To eliminate these sufferings, directly or indirectly, one must rely on a remedy like the wish-fulfilling jewel. The Buddha taught 84,000 Dharma doors for different beings. He taught both Sutra and Tantra to suit their needs. But among all these teachings, the very best is bodhicitta. Just as a merchant leader uses wisdom to find true treasure, the Buddha also used wisdom to examine all teachings. He found that the essence, the rarest and most precious, the supreme medicine like nectar, is bodhicitta. Through his wisdom, the Buddha fully understood that bodhicitta is no different from the wish-fulfilling jewel in this world. The wish-fulfilling jewel can only fulfill worldly needs, but this supramundane bodhicitta enables all beings who have the karmic connection to attain the perfect state of Buddhahood. So first, we must understand that bodhicitta is truly precious. To encounter the teachings on bodhicitta in this human life is indeed extremely rare and fortunate. We can truly say this. In the past, the great masters of the Kadampa tradition had such high praise for bodhicitta and the noble gurus who taught it. Among all their gurus and spiritual masters, they held the guru who taught bodhicitta in the highest regard, Atisha, for example. This is because bodhicitta is so precious. For example, in this world, if someone gives you the most precious thing, then this person's kindness towards you is the greatest. In the same way, among all the Dharma teachings, bodhicitta, the altruistic mind, is the rarest and most precious. Whether you receive it from a person or from a Dharma text, we should cherish and uphold bodhicitta. In the past, many Nyingma monasteries followed this tradition of Patrul Rinpoche, though today many no longer keep this tradition, but this was the tradition established by Patrul Rinpoche. Every monastery was required to teach web of magical illusion, and the Bodhicharyavatara each year, this was his rule. When Patrul Rinpoche was alive, many monasteries followed this practice. And many monasteries that continue his lineage still do so today. His Holiness Jigme Punsok Rinpoche also mentioned this in the past. So in our academy, almost every class each year studies the Bodhicharyavatara. It is very rare for a class not to study the Bodhicharyavatara. This is both a tradition and a requirement. I have repeatedly mentioned this essential point. There are so many treatises and scriptures, vast as the ocean, whether in Tibetan Buddhism or Chinese Han Buddhism. Why do we place such importance on the Bodhicharyavatara? There are various reasons and causes for this. I hope you will reflect carefully on these points. It is not enough to just say it is precious. We must truly understand its value. Some of you may not yet realize the value of bodhicitta or the importance of the Bodhicharyavatara. You may only understand after you have practiced for some time. At the beginning, it is not always clear. Now you have studied many sutras, but after 20 years, when you look back on your life, you will see that the Bodhicharyavatara truly had great value for you. Whether in worldly life or in your spiritual journey, it will certainly have lasting value. Earlier we mentioned that the guide of beings, Buddha Shakyamuni and all the Buddhas, observed that bodhicitta is the most precious. Therefore, anyone who wishes to be free from samsara should remember what is taught in the Lotus Sutra, that the three realms are without peace, like a burning house. So in the entire three realms there is no true happiness. There is suffering of change, suffering upon suffering, and pervasive suffering. These three main types of suffering and many others torment us and oppress us every day. So life in this world is truly full of suffering. Not to mention the sufferings described in Buddhist texts, even worldly sufferings like war and disasters, and all kinds of terrorist attacks in the world, as well as epidemics and infectious diseases. There are indeed many sufferings in this world. These sufferings are like falling into a pit of fire. As Mahayana practitioners, do we wish to leave this burning house of samsara? Of course, we all wish to leave it. As long as you have this wish, the best way is to practice bodhicitta. If you abandon bodhicitta and try to solve this problem through other practices, it will be truly very difficult. I believe that most of you here are not seeking worldly happiness or prosperity. Perhaps a few lay people may wish for that. Some people have asked, while listening to the Bodhicharyavatara, will studying the Bodhicharyavatara bring wealth? Some people say yes, it will bring wealth. Others say it will not. But I think it is not so simple. If you wish for wealth, then study the Bodhicharyavatara well and cultivate bodhicitta sincerely. With the blessings of the three jewels, your wishes will be fulfilled. As we mentioned yesterday, bodhicitta bestows upon us everything needed for the three types of practitioners. So bodhicitta can bring prosperity, and it can also heal illness. It can cure both mental and physical illnesses, especially the mental suffering. I believe the Bodhicharyavatara is the best remedy for physical illness. Seeking treatment at a hospital would certainly be appropriate and helpful as well. But for mental suffering, you should rely on the Bodhicharyavatara, especially for lay people nowadays. There are so many kinds of suffering and unexplainable pain. There are many pressures and difficulties in daily life. But after listening to the Bodhicharyavatara, you may find great benefit and realize everything is like a dream or illusion. Whether it is family, enemies, work, or daily life, it is all like a dream. There is not much difference. It is just like acting in a dream. Then your attachment to worldly things will greatly decrease. As your attachment decreases, your happiness will naturally increase. This will be a great help for your mental well-being. There are not many mental health professionals yet, so it is very necessary to rely on this text as a remedy for the mind. I encourage everyone to use the Bodhicharyavatara to heal your mind. It is truly necessary to heal your own mind in this way. This is the main meaning of the verse here. The only guide who can lead all beings to the city of liberation and enjoy the jewel of all qualities, the peerless Buddha. This is the peerless, perfect Buddha in our world. The only one who is flawless and perfect in all qualities is the Buddha. The Buddha's wisdom knows all phenomena. The Buddha's wisdom realizes the true nature of all things. As we mentioned before, he knows things as they truly are. Apart from this, other beings cannot fathom this wisdom. The Buddha is truly all-knowing and all-pervading. He comprehends everything completely. He realizes all phenomena without any hindrance. But other sentient beings are not like this. No matter how renowned or accomplished worldly figures may be, whether acclaimed scientists, Nobel Prize laureates, or considered the highest authorities in their fields, but when we compare these achievements to the Buddha's wisdom, there is still a vast difference. When the Buddha, with immeasurable wisdom, carefully examined all phenomena, he saw that bodhicitta is most rare and possesses tremendous merit. Moreover, it is extraordinarily rare, extraordinarily precious, truly invaluable. The Avatamsaka Sutra says, among all jewels, the wish-fulfilling jewel is the king of jewels. Among all treasures, the wish-fulfilling jewel is supreme. Even today, people still think that diamonds and other precious stones are the king of jewels. Likewise, throughout the three times, the wisdom of omniscience perceives the Dharmadhatu as its object. The virtuous roots, whether contaminated or uncontaminated, of humans, gods, Shravakas, and Pratyeka Buddhas, do not compare to the value of bodhicitta, the wish-fulfilling jewel. Regarding the contaminated and uncontaminated virtuous roots last year, we studied the Abhidharmakosha, so everyone should understand what is meant by contaminated and uncontaminated virtue. All the virtuous roots of Shravakas, Pratyeka Buddhas, humans, and gods, among all the good deeds done by sentient beings, none can compare to bodhicitta. So on the surface we may practice meditation, recite the Buddha's name, turn prayer wheels, or make prostrations and perform many other virtuous actions, but in reality, none of these can compare to the merit of generating a single moment of bodhicitta. Last year I joked with you about this. You often talk about making pilgrimages to Lhasa or circumambulating sacred mountains. I said no matter how many days you spend on pilgrimage, the merit of a single instant of bodhicitta is far greater. The merit of those actions cannot compare to bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is an inner practice, as taught by the Buddha, a method of cultivation with tremendously vast merit. This is something we should always remember. This is a very important point. Therefore, all beings who wish to be free from suffering should firmly uphold and practice bodhicitta. Now let us discuss the third point. Third, using the analogy of the wish-fulfilling tree to show its inexhaustible and increasing fruit. All other virtues, like banana trees, are spent once they have produced a result. The tree of bodhicitta constantly bears fruit, thus thriving inexhaustibly. Here it says that other virtuous roots, for example, in our daily life, the virtuous roots that conducive to liberation or to merit are like the plantain tree, which bears fruit only once after bearing fruit. Its seeds dry up. After that, it will never bear fruit again. But the marvelous tree of bodhicitta, the virtue of bodhicitta, is like the wish-fulfilling tree in the heavens. Or, in ancient times, when people had great merit, there existed the wish-fulfilling tree. Compared to the plantain tree, the wish-fulfilling tree is quite different. Its fruit is continuous, endless, and inexhaustible. It keeps producing fruit without ceasing. Not only is it never exhausted, but the more it is enjoyed, the more abundant it becomes. This is the literal meaning here. That is to say, all other practices bear fruit once, such as the four dhyanas, the four formless absorptions, or seeking worldly merit. As we just discussed, some people practice medicine Buddha for health, some recite the name of Buddha Amitabha to be reborn in the Pure Land for happiness. Some meditate for physical and mental well-being. When I traveled to the south, one lay practitioner shared with me, you should meditate more. Meditation is very good for your health. It can balance the four elements. During meditation, you should let go of all thoughts. In this way, all the elements in your body, they are also meditating just as you are. Then, they will not become exhausted. If they are not exhausted, your body and illnesses will naturally improve. So, meditation is very helpful for your health. Some lay people have shared many excellent teachings with me. So some practice meditation mainly for health. There are people like this. All of these are virtuous roots that lead to merit because they only want to seek the worldly merit. We see that during every festival in many Chinese Han temples, people burn incense and make many offerings. If we have time, we can quietly listen nearby and hear many people making aspirations. Very few people make aspirations for future lives or for the benefit of all beings. Most people wish for success in their careers or to find a good partner and various other such worldly aspirations. Sometimes, when people are making aspirations, if we listen quietly, they do not notice us. We often hear these kinds of wishes. These are what we call virtuous roots that lead to merit. after these virtuous roots are used up and exhausted. If you continue praying and cultivating merit, you can receive the corresponding result. This is a matter of cause and effect. If your mind is sincere, the blessings of the three jewels are unfailing and will certainly be granted. This is one kind of virtuous root. Another is the virtuous roots of Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas who seek to be free from samsara and attain the fruit of nirvana. This is called the virtuous root conducive to liberation. These virtuous roots function similarly. Once you attain the arhat fruition, beyond that point, there is nothing more to be attained. After that, if you want to enter the bodhisattva path or attain Buddhahood, you must accumulate merit all over again. But bodhicitta is not like this. That is why here it is compared to other virtuous roots, which are like the plantain tree. Of course, there are different explanations about the plantain tree. Some commentaries say it bears fruit only once and then withers, but after my own observation, it seems that the plantain trees we see today are not exactly like that. Some plantain trees bear fruit every year, but eventually they stop producing. Especially in the south, the fruit of some plantain trees is actually edible. Some plantain trees are not much different from banana trees. The main difference is just the variety. Especially in places like Guangdong and Hainan, the banana trees there, people often think they are plantain trees, simply different varieties of the same family. So these trees today may differ somewhat from what was described in some of the earlier classical commentaries. When His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche visited India, he would often hold a banana and say, "This is the fruit of the plantain tree." He asked many Indian people about it, and those Indians also responded, suggesting that the tree does not only bear fruit once. So how should we understand this analogy? The idea is that once the fruit is produced, it will not bear fruit again. Perhaps a plantain tree can live for hundreds of years, but once its seeds dry up, it will never produce fruit again. After the seeds dry up, it will not bear fruit again. This is one way to understand the analogy. But the virtue of bodhicitta is different. Its function of producing merit is completely different from that of the plantain tree. How is it different? It is just like the wish-fulfilling tree. It is inexhaustible and never runs out. It continues to increase until we attain Buddhahood. From now until enlightenment, these virtuous roots will never be exhausted. These virtuous roots will never be depleted. I remember in the Great Chariot, there is a quotation from the Question of Maitreya. That quotation says that when many rivers flow into the ocean, as long as the ocean does not dry up, the rivers will not dry up. As long as the ocean remains, the rivers will not run dry. In the same way, the virtue held by bodhicitta continues to flow into the ocean of Buddhahood. Until we attain Buddhahood, this merit will never be exhausted. Another analogy is a seed planted in fertile soil, which will always grow and flourish. It will continue to grow strong and healthy. So we should understand that the more virtue we accumulate now, the better. It's not at all the case that once we use them up, they immediately become exhausted. Otherwise, we would have to keep creating new virtue, which would be very difficult. Even if you recite the Avalokiteshvara mantra once a day or do any virtuous deed, it should be embraced by bodhicitta. If your virtue is embraced by bodhicitta, then this virtue will last until you attain Buddhahood. It will remain until you become a Buddha, however long that takes. As ordinary beings, we do not know how long that will be. But one day, we will definitely become Buddhas. Before attaining Buddhahood, it is best that our virtue is never exhausted. So the merit of bodhicitta is truly magnificent and powerful. This is why so many great masters place special importance on the virtue of bodhicitta. The reason lies right here. So we should cultivate bodhicitta. With bodhicitta, our virtuous roots will keep increasing. As mentioned earlier, this is how it functions. All other virtues not embraced or sustained by bodhicitta are like the plantain tree, which naturally exhausts itself after bearing fruit. But the marvelous tree of bodhicitta always bears fruit. Not only is it never exhausted, but it also actually flourishes more and more. Its abundant fruit keeps increasing. This is its special quality. The Sutra of the Jewel Casket says, Manjushri, all trees grow by relying on the four elements. No matter what kind of tree, it grows with the support of earth, water, fire, and wind. In the same way, Manjushri, if virtue is embraced by bodhicitta and dedicated to Buddhahood, it will increase day by day. Therefore, any virtuous root of any kind, if it is first properly embraced by bodhicitta, in the middle maintained through the practice without reference point, and finally concluded with proper dedication, if practiced in this way, then the virtuous roots will never be exhausted. The reason why nowadays all the great masters place such strong emphasis on the three supreme methods or three excellences is precisely for this reason. Whether we are teaching the Dharma or doing anything else, we should first try to adjust our motivation. We should think, I am not doing this for myself, but for the benefit of all beings. No matter what you do, always keep others in mind. Whenever you do it, always hold the intention for the benefit of all beings. In the process, try to maintain mindfulness and awareness. At the end, dedicate all the virtue you have created to all beings. Dedication means offering, so you work for the benefit of all beings. All the merit from your actions today should be dedicated to all beings. If you practice in this way, then everything you do can become the cause of complete enlightenment. Previously, haven't I also shared with you this story? In Tibet, there was a Lama named Lama Gacho. During the 1950s and 60s, Lama Gacho was subjected to intense criticism. The Red Guards would criticize him. Every time he went on stage, he would think to himself, today, for the sake of all beings, I am practicing the perfection of patience. Then when those people hit or insulted him, he always generated compassion for them. When he stepped down, he would think, through practicing patience, may all beings who formed a karmic connection with me today attain complete and perfect enlightenment. So he would sincerely dedicate his merit as he left the stage. This is recorded in his biography. After learning about this inspiring example, I truly feel admiration. Many of us, not to mention benefit those who create negative karma and actively harm us, we even forget this when we perform virtuous. At the beginning, we often forget adjusting our motivation, that we should do this for the benefit of beings. In the middle, our mind cannot remain focused, and at the end, our dedication is vague and unclear. But some great masters or practitioners with more developed realization, even when encountering such challenging circumstances, they dedicate everything they do entirely to all sentient beings. So in our daily life, whether in our work or in our spiritual practice as monastics, when things don't go smoothly or when we encounter situations that are unpleasant, we should think, today, for the sake of sentient beings, I will face this challenge. For example, for the benefit of others, today I will speak kindly to a Dharma friend who has a difficult temper. So before leaving home, I first generate bodhicitta. Then, when actually communicating and interacting, I try my best to maintain mindfulness and awareness. At the end of the day, I dedicate all the merit I have accumulated to all beings. If you can do this, it is truly wonderful. Last year in Hangzhou, we attended teachings with Khenpo Depa. During the teachings, at a certain point in the afternoon, he started to doze off. When he was dozing, he would tap himself with something. When he tapped himself, I really wanted to laugh, but when I wanted to laugh, I didn't dare to. Eventually, I really couldn't hold it in and started laughing. So there are many forms of patience in daily life. Sometimes even wanting to laugh requires patience. Sometimes when you want to cry, you also need patience. If you do not practice well, the result may not be good. Now let's discuss the fourth point. Fourth, using the analogy of a protector to illustrate the fruit of being freed from negative karma, like those who in great danger rely on heroes. Why would the careful not rely on that which liberates them in a single instant, even if they have done horrendous wrongs? This means that if we have committed very serious negative actions, just as someone who relies on a powerful protector can dispel all their fears, all terrors can be eliminated. In the same way, if you want to attain liberation quickly, why not rely on bodhicitta if you have negative karma? This means that by relying on bodhicitta, all the negative karma in our mind stream can be purified. In the outline here, it mentions that fixed karma can be suppressed. Some commentaries also say that fixed karma can be subdued. As for unfixed karma, it can be eliminated at the root. So regarding this particular point, we should reflect on it. The commentary below explains it like this. Even if one has committed unimaginable, extremely grave offenses such as harming the three jewels, just as relying on a protector can help one escape great danger, one can be freed from the serious threat of enemies, relying on bodhicitta. One can be liberated from the ripening results of grave misdeeds in an instant. Why do people who are afraid of their negative karma not rely upon it? This means that in our world, some people may have committed very serious offenses, such as slandering the three jewels, or committing the 5 heinous crimes like killing one's parents, or an arhat, which are among the 5 heinous crimes, or breaking pratimoksha vows or tantric vows, and so on. For those who have committed such particularly grave and monstrous crimes, they'll be rescued if they rely on bodhicitta. It is like a criminal who has committed a very serious crime, and he is afraid to go somewhere. If someone with great power and influence escorts them, he does not need to be afraid at all. For example, if I have an enemy inserter, I would not dare to go there. But if someone with even greater influence says, it's fine, come with me, I can handle that person, you don't need to worry about this at all, then I can go there safely without fear. Similarly, we have accumulated immeasurable negative karma, countless misdeeds that we may or may not even remember. All these misdeeds can be purified by relying on bodhicitta. If we practice bodhicitta, then at the time of death, these misdeeds will be avoided and will never become an obstacle to liberation. So among all methods of confession, this is the best way to purify negative karma. His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche also said this when teaching the Bodhicharyavatara. He said that if we break vows or commit the 5 heinous crimes or slander the 3 jewels and so on, yet by relying on bodhicitta, we will definitely be liberated. We will not fall into the lower realms. Even if you do fall into the lower realms, it will be for a very short time. It is like a basketball bouncing off the ground. If you fall into hell, you will quickly be liberated. Some people who commit the 5 heinous crimes due to their karma may fall into hell immediately after death. But after falling into hell, they will be liberated very quickly. So His Holiness also shared some stories about this in his teachings, as well as some of his dreams and visions. These are all recorded in the extensive commentary on Bodhicharyavatara. I hope that as we study this time, you will read the extensive commentary on Bodhicharyavatara. This is a good opportunity for reading it. In the past, many great masters would always consult several commentaries when studying any treatise. If conditions allowed, they would always refer to several books. For example, when I study the Bodhicharyavatara, I will read the commentary by Gyaltsabje and other commentaries as well. They would read several commentaries together. This is the way how great masters in the past studied the Dharma. Our current approach to study is sometimes rather superficial and cursory. Simply listening or attending a few tutorials is not enough. It is very important to read and study the texts yourself. So, back to our topic, when we learned the extensive commentary, these points were also explained there with bodhicitta. We will not fall into the lower realms. Even if we do, there is no need to be afraid because we will be liberated very quickly. Consider the example of King Ajatashatru. He committed 3 of the 5 heinous crimes, yet by relying on bodhicitta, the time he spent in hell was extremely brief. There was also Bhikkhu Mahadeva. His story is also explained in the commentary on Treasury of Good Advice. He too committed 3 of the 5 heinous crimes. Later, he taught the Dharma to others and trained many become arhats. After he passed away, his disciples wondered, where has my teacher been reborn now? Using their arhat powers, they investigated. At that time, a benefactor was making offerings, and while washing his hands, this disciple wondered about his teacher's rebirth. He wondered, what realm is my teacher in now? Using the arhat's uncontaminated clairvoyance, he checked. When he checked, he saw that his teacher, Mahadeva, had fallen into the cold hell. Not yet realizing his situation, Mahadeva was saying, this place is so cold. The disciple felt greatly dismayed at this discovery. He wondered how his teacher could have fallen into the cold hell. After washing his hands, he checked again to see where his teacher was. When he checked again, he saw that his teacher had already been reborn in the heaven of the 33. So the time that Mahadeva spent in hell was very short. Therefore, Even if you fall into the lower realms with bodhicitta, you will not stay long. This is exactly what we need. Because if one's negative karma is very strong, it may be hard not to fall. But even if you do fall, you will be liberated very quickly. Therefore, if you wish to attain liberation quickly, you must practice bodhicitta. It is essential to cultivate bodhicitta. This is especially important for those with heavy karma and abundant misdeeds, whose practice of virtue throughout their lives has been so weak. Truly, in our alaya consciousness, the white space of virtuous practice, it is very small for many of us. But the space for negative karma is very large. Especially for some lay people, many actions, particularly killing, produce negative karma, whether in eating or other activities. Throughout life, so much negative karma is created. If we do not rely on cultivating bodhicitta, whether other methods can truly purify these negatives completely is something we should carefully examine. Now, let's continue. We should rely on bodhicitta. Sutra of Aksayamati says, "Noble son, just as relying on a hero, one need not fear any enemies. If you rely on a hero, there is nothing to fear." This scriptural citation appears identically in the Avatamsaka Sutra. The same teaching is found there as well. In the same way, bodhisattvas who rely on the warrior of genuine bodhicitta do not fear any enemy of wrongdoing. If we truly give rise to bodhicitta in our mind stream, there is no need to fear whatever negative karma we have created. In fact, no one would dare claim to be completely free of negative karma. From childhood until now, we have surely accumulated much negative karma. All this negative karma must be purified by relying on bodhicitta. So everyone should diligently and sincerely practice bodhicitta. All right, we will stop here for today.
Bandara